everybody. I'm Ed Robinson, and welcome to another exciting edition of At the Rim. This is the program that we get you caught up on anything and everything happening around the NBA. Coming up on this edition of the program, we'll recap Game 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics, and also we have interviews with JimMallin and ChrisLebron. Jim is the general manager of the UnionOysterHouse in Boston, Massachusetts. We discussed the food served at the UnionOysterHouse, also the Celtics playing in this year's NBA Finals, and so much more. As for ChrisLebron, he is the CEO of the OfftheBall network, host of OfftheBall and Get a Bucket podcast, and he's also a contributor for Knicks Fan TV. We discussed the New York Knicks playoff run against the Philadelphia 76ers and the Indiana Pacers. Also, we talked Jalen Brunson, the magic of basketball being back in New York City, and so much more. So we've got a jam-packed show for you, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Every year, right before the beginning of the NBA Finals, AdamSilver, he always does his press conference, kind of like a state of the NBA address, where he touched bases on key issues, a lot of things that are currently happening in the league. And the first thing that's on everybody's mind is the new NBA media rights deal. Of course, next year will be the final year of the NBA media rights deal, and specifically, also next year is the last year of the contract that the NBA has with TNT Sports, and specifically in an iconic show inside the NBA that has been a part of not just the NBA and basketball or sports, but pop culture for decades. Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal. Inside the NBA has been a household institution, as I stated, for many decades. The show started on TNT in 1989 when there was a rotation of hosts. They used a variety of hosts in the first season of the 89-90 NBA season. Since 1990, Ernie Johnson has been the lead host of Inside the NBA, and then as the years have gone by, they've added Charles Barkley. He was the first one to be on Inside the NBA, and then Kenny the Jet Smith came, and then Shaquille O'Neal was the last one. But AdamSilver, the commissioner of the league, again, was asked not only about Inside the NBA as well as finalizing a new NBA media rights deal sooner than later.
It has been difficult. That show in particular is special, and I have a close relationship with everyone who's on that show from the time they played in the league as well, and Ernie and I have been friends forever. At the same time, it's not just the talent, of course, and you've been in production yourself. I mean, there's hundreds of people who are involved with, what I still refer to as Turner Sports, who have been longtime friends and colleagues, and no different at the other networks. And it's on one hand, from the league standpoint, it's fantastic to be liked and to be wanted and to have multiple suitors. At the same time, it makes me uncomfortable that it's zero sum, that at the end of the day, there's only going to be so many television packages, there's only so many finals games and playoff games and regular season games to distribute. So I will say directly from me, directly to your question, the people who seem to be most impacted right now, and the folks at Turner Sports, is I apologize that this has been a prolonged process, because I know they're committed to their jobs. I know people who work in this industry, it's a large part of their identity and their family's identity, and no one likes this uncertainty. And I think it's on the league office to bring these negotiations to a head and conclude them, as quickly as we can.
All right, that audio courtesy of the National Basketball Association, the NBA. So you heard Commissioner Silver thoughts talk about Inside the NBA and the looming NBA media rights deal. And one of the things he mentioned in that soundbite that you heard was basically Commissioner Silver talking about jobs being lost. And whenever a new media rights deal is on the horizon, if a network loses out on a bid for NBA or any professional sports league, it is always tough, because those people have jobs, and not just with jobs and, like what Commissioner Silver said, it's a part of an identity. And then also, too, it becomes a part of your family. It's like a family when you go to your job, and those relationships that have been built for years and decades, it's tough. And and as Commissioner Silver was saying, that hopefully they can get a media rights deal done sooner than later, but also just kind of wanted to pontificate more on what Commissioner Silver was saying, was that he mentioned about the complexities of a media rights deal. And again, it's tough because in the current news that we have is that NBC and Amazon, they want to get in on the NBA. I know NBC was a partner of the NBA from 1990 to 2002, and certainly it was iconic in the way they broadcast NBA games. Amazon, they're currently in the fold with live sports with the NFL, with the Thursday night football package, and of course the Black Friday game. So Amazon, they want to get in the mix as well in terms of broadcasting NBA games. Also, ESPN and ABC, which has been the current carrier of NBA games for a long time under this current media rights deal, they want to renew, but TNT has had a strong relationship. I should say Turner Sports has had a long relationship with the NBA since 1984, starting off with the NBA on TBS, and then 1989 was when, I believe it was 1988 was when the NBA started having a partnership with TNT, and it's been that ever since up until now. So again, it's a lot at stake with a media rights deal. It's easier said than done. It's simple, but it's complicated at the same token. And of course, Commissioner Silver mentioned in another soundbite about the streaming platforms and the consistency of it. He mentioned that cable viewership is continuing to decline, but however, the strength is still there in broadcast television. ABC is the home of the NBA Finals, and, they still have a strong partnership with them. So despite cable viewership declining, there's still a connection with broadcast television or over-the-air television with ABC and its current partners with ESPN, TNT, and things of that nature. But the streaming platforms are coming. They're here. They're still being developed, but a lot of people thought the deal would get done right after the Western Conference Finals. But as you heard what Commissioner Silver said, it's a complicated process, and there's only so many packages to go around. So there's still a glimmer of hope for TNT and the Inside the NBA show, not just with Ernie, Charles, Kenny, and Shaquille O'Neal, but also with the whole staff, that they'll still have jobs at TNT. But not just in the sports business, but most importantly in the broadcasting business, you just never know. And speaking of another thing that's always impacting the NBA, and that's expansion. We know that Las Vegas, they've been the home of the NBA Summer League for quite a while now, and there's been talk about Las Vegas getting a team, possibly Seattle could return to the NBA. Every year, expansion has always been the talk of the town, or the one of the big headlines of the press conference. Here's Commissioner Silver about potential expansion.
Bill Coney, can you tell me when the media deals will be over so I can begin the expansion process? I mean, in all seriousness, that I meant what I said. We do need to finish up. I think I said a few years ago, collective bargaining agreement, new media deals, then we would turn to expansion. So we got part one done clearly, and thank you to the Players Association. We're very happy, I think both sides are, with our new collective bargaining agreement. Media deals, it's been a long process. It's ongoing, and we hope to wrap it up, in the relative near term. And then we will turn to expansion. But by turning to expansion, it doesn't mean that we're going to announce that now we're ready to add teams. It means that there'll be a committee of NBA governors that will focus on it. There's clearly markets out there that are very interested, and we'll run through a process. But I actually am looking forward to that. I think that the league, it's not preordained that we will expand this time, but I know there's an enormous amount of interest out there. And to me, yes, there are wealthy individuals, institutions that would like to invest and buy NBA teams, but I think it's on the league to look holistically, because there's the dilution, of course. Let's just say we expand by 2 teams. What does that mean for talent? I feel great about where the talent is right now in the league, but those players have to come from somewhere. If you add two teams, how does it work geographically? What will it mean for growing the game? At some point, we'd like to look outside the United States in addition to Canada. This may not be the right moment to do that, but I'm thinking long-term as well. So I'm actually very excited about turning to that process. But first, we just got to be finished with the media deals.
All right, again, that audio courtesy of the National Basketball Association and the NBA. So you heard what Commissioner Silver said about potential expansion in the NBA. He says nothing will become official. They won't discuss the issue of expansion until the media rights deals are done. So, and rightfully so, because when you get into expansion, it's just a whirlwind of things. When you heard Commissioner Silver mention about things from a geographical perspective, not just with the United States, but even with Canada as well. It's a lot that goes on in terms of the league expansion, and then when they're dealing with luxury taxes for the league and things of that nature. And then you heard him say there is a possibility that they could expand outside of North America. Could London get a team maybe, or maybe a team maybe in Brazil? The game is becoming global. The game's been global since the 90s, and it's continued to have such a global impact with the internet and social media. So they will visit expansion again, but as you heard Commissioner Silver say, that issue will not be touched until the media rights deals are done. And speaking of international, the NBA has been a global sport since the 1990s. In the 1980s, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson saved the NBA. In the 90s, Michael Jordan and the Dream Team, they took it to a whole nother level. And they made the game global, and even it's expanded to this current time and this current moment that we're in with the internet, the continuing evolution of the internet and social media. The game is super global, and you have international stars like Luka Doncic, like a Kristaps Porzingis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, just to name a few. And that international impact has been felt really continuing on the back end of Michael Jordan and the first Dream Team. Commissioner Silver was asked about the continuing international takeover of the NBA, and also talked about talent development in the United States.
I'm absolutely fine with that. And it's interesting. At times change. There used to be concerns even geographically of players from a certain area of the country, and how will they feel about that player in that market because the player played for a top college program somewhere else or is from somewhere else. I think it's increasingly a global league, in that if wherever that player is from, and Luka Doncic is a great example, or Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. I think if that player becomes part of that community, lives in that community, gives of himself or herself in the WNBA to that community, I think they become part and parcel. I don't think it's any different that, I went to Duke University, and when a player is playing for Duke and Duke fans are all in, they're not so focused on where that player is from, whether in the United States or in Luol Deng or other players from outside the United States. So it's a global market. At the same time, I will say, to my earlier point, it is important that we focus on proper development of American players. I just think for the sport, we're a U.S.-based business. The majority of our revenue still comes from the United States. So I feel an obligation to the game as well, and I know I speak for the head of the NCAA who played college basketball. So it's over time. Like, for example, we're up to about 30% of our players are international. When you think about the amount of basketball being played globally, and the U.S. is a little less than 5% of the global population, that number of international players will only rise. So statistically, you're going to see more top-notch international players in the league. It doesn't mean, though, that there won't still be great U.S. players.
All right, again, that audio courtesy of the National Basketball Association and the NBA. So you heard Commissioner Silver on the first half of the soundbite talk about the continuous presence of international players. And I loved it then, and I continue to love the international stars that are coming in this renaissance, so to speak. He mentioned about Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Nikola Jokic, just to name a few. And that international presence, again, as I stated earlier, off the back end of Michael Jordan and the first Dream Team. And that presence is continuing to be felt just with a load of talent from Europe and a host of other countries. Now, he mentioned about, as far as international presence being the face of the NBA, I'm all for it. I know people are split on this and 50-50, and I think some people are like, well, we need someone that is very marketable, which is true to a certain extent, and somebody that's likable, which it makes a lot of sense in most in most aspects. I don't have any problems with an international player being the face of the NBA. If it's Victor Wembanyama, it's fine. If it's Nikola Jokic, that's fine. If it's a Luka Doncic or Giannis Antetokounmpo or even a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that's fine. I just think we need to embrace different personalities. Everybody's not going to be as outgoing. I mean, there are people that are outgoing. They're just outgoing in their own special way, and I just think we just need to embrace that. And just the personalities are different. I think with a lot of international players, I think that they come to America, they're grateful, they're thankful, they understand the mission, they live in their respective NBA cities during the basketball season, and when season's over with, they go back home. And I think we need to respect that as well. And I think also, too, the way European or the way international players are being trained are just different. They learn fundamentals, and they don't play a loaded schedule. American players are now playing loaded schedules. They're playing club ball, AAU ball, all these different leagues, and the fundamentals are not necessarily being taught. They're taught, they're extremely gifted, and they're extremely athletic. The athletic ability is there, but they're not being taught the fundamentals like free throw shooting, rebounding, passing, and defense. Defense and rebounding, in my opinion, have always been the building blocks to being a solid basketball player. But the international presence has been here, and it's continuing to be a driving force in the NBA. And it's not going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere. And I have no problems with an international player being the face of the NBA. We just have to get used to some things and just, could be more humility. I'm fine with that. And, it's a breath of fresh air to have an international player to be the face of the NBA, just to continue the international presence and the globalization of the league. And then we have one last soundbite from Commissioner Silver. The first soundbite you heard talked about the NBA media rights deal ending next year and getting a new one done. He was asked about the WNBA, the possibility of them wanting to do their own television rights deal. A lot of interesting audio in this soundbite. Here's Commissioner Silver.
Ultimately, it's a collective choice here between the NBA and the WNBA. And now, if you look at how those rights are distributed, we share a partner, of course, in the Disney company, but then there are some partners of the WNBA that are independent of the NBA. So I think what's going to happen is we're setting out in these discussions, discussing both NBA and WNBA. I mean, there's no doubt, I think, especially over enormous interest, most recently around women's college basketball and the growth in the WNBA over the last few years, that the interest is heightened from where it used to be. So that's wonderful to see. In the first instance, I think it's in the league's interest to the extent we can do integrated deals and the NBA promotes into the WNBA season, the WNBA promotes into the NBA, and we can all talk about basketball. I think that's a positive thing. On the other hand, there may be unique channels for the WNBA that make particular sense. There's women's sports networks, other things that may bring particular attention, which could be complementary to the coverage that they would get through a traditional media partner that the NBA would be part of. And also it's a function to that earlier question of the marketplace as well. I mean, my sense is that, just as a reminder, the NBA represents roughly 260 nights a year programming WNBA currently is about 60 nights. That could grow over time. And to the extent we can present ourselves as a year-round basketball product, that becomes increasingly important, I think, particularly to streaming platforms that are dealing with, potential churn. And I think it's also, I'll just end by saying what I mentioned before in terms of what we can do with new technologies, AI, digital executions around our game. I think we're in the process at the league office, and when I say the league office, I mean the NBA and the WNBA, of investing heavily in developing an expertise around how to produce basketball and what the best ways are to present it. So presumably, by having these integrated deals, we can take advantage of that, of our expertise, of that technology in finding, as Sabrina Ionescu said, at All-Star Game, basketball is basketball, shooters are shooters. At the end of the day, it's the game. And to the extent that we come up with ways that to better present the game, to do a better job engaging fans with an understanding of the game and what makes this player unique and what defense is really being played, and when people can go beyond, as sometimes happens with the commentators that make it clear it's much more than effort. It's like, why is this player being shut down? What is this offense? Presented in a way that makes it even that much more enticing to fans. There's real opportunities to scale there when you put the NBA and WNBA together.
All right, that audio courtesy of the National Basketball Association, the NBA. All right, so you heard what Commissioner Silver said about the possibility of the WNBA wanting to do their own media rights deal. He brought up a lot of key factors in this. He mentioned about how many games not just the WNBA plays, but the NBA plays as well. The NBA plays an 82-game regular season. The WNBA currently only plays a 40-game regular season. So you heard what Commissioner Silver said about how many nights the NBA is on. The NBA is on, they're on so many nights a week during the regular season. The WNBA currently is on, as I stated earlier, only a 40-game regular season. And then not to mention, of course, there's an all-star break and then the Olympic break that they have. So, and as he said, you have to accommodate, get the W more games to give them a sizable schedule where they can start talking about wanting their own media rights deal. I want to add something to that as well. The WNBA has the potential to get their own media rights deal, but not just yet. I think, and you heard what Commissioner Silver was alluding to, more experience. The WNBA has been in existence since 1997. The league has not made a profit currently. The league has lost between $10 to $12 million a year. Now, can that change? Yes, it can change, depending on this year's rookie class, on the backs of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, Cameron Brink, Rickea Jackson, Daisha Fair. That whole rookie class within itself has the chance to change things. I think if we get to see this year's rookie class along with the talented veterans that are in the W, then I think the W in the next several years to negotiate their own media rights deal. And then also you heard what Commissioner Silver said about the digital streaming platforms. The streaming platforms are growing, but there still needs to be a consistency in terms of how people watch the games. They don't just want to watch a game where the picture's fine, but the audio sucks, or everything's lagging and buffering, or whatever case may be. You want a live sporting experience that you're watching to be seamless. So the WNBA, it begins and ends with this year's rookie class, and it's on the up and up, but they've got to continue to capitalize off the backs of not just Caitlin Clark, but just the whole 2024 WNBA rookie class. It's got to happen. If they can get revenue, and we're starting to see the continuing growth of the W, the expansion team in the San Francisco Bay Area with Golden State in 2025, Toronto in 2026, it's on the up and up. But I don't think the WNBA should get their own media rights deal yet. They've got to get more experience, and then also, too, it's going to begin and end with the 2024 rookie class led by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and the other young ladies that I mentioned. So there's a chance that it could happen, but it's going to be a lot of figures and a lot of factors that are going to come into that, particularly, in my opinion, not just with this year's rookie class, but also in terms of the revenue coming in. Can the W sustain itself and not depend on the NBA to subsidize them as they've been doing every year? Can they really do it? Only time will tell. But and that's it. Those are just some of the sound bites from Commissioner AdamSilver's press conference before the start of the 2024 NBA Finals. And speaking of the 2024 NBA Finals, let's just give you the stats and recap Game 1 of the Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Boston beats Dallas 107-89. Boston leads the series 1-0. For the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis returned from a calf strain, came off the bench, was sensational. Points. Jaylen Brown finished with 22 points. Jason Tatum had a double-double with 16 points and 11 rebounds. Derek White finished with 15 points. Drew Holiday finished with 12 points, and Al Horford finished with 10 points. On the losing end for the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic had a double-double with 30 points and 10 rebounds. P.J. Washington finished with 14 points. Jaden Hardy, finished with 13 points. And Kyrie Irving only had 12 points. So again, the final score in Game 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals, the Celtics 107, the Mavericks 89. Boston leads the series 1-0. The city of Boston is an American treasure, known as being the cradle for the American Revolution, also known for educational institutions, Ivy League schools to be exact, such as Harvard, also Yale, Boston College, just to name a few. Boston is also rich in sports culture. Oh, yeah, and Boston is also a food city. And we want to welcome someone that knows an infamous and a famous restaurant to many all over the world. Let's welcome him to the program. He is the general manager of the UnionOysterHouse in Boston, Massachusetts, JimMallin. Jim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you for having me on today to talk about the UnionOysterHouse.
Absolutely, sir. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. So before we talk about the Boston Celtics and the NBA Finals and things of that nature, you are the general manager of the UnionOysterHouse in Boston, Massachusetts. And let's start from the beginning. What are the origins of the UnionOysterHouse and how it all began?
Well, the Oyster House is the oldest restaurant in continuous service in the United States. We have been serving the public since 1826. Now, prior to being a restaurant, the building was used as a dry goods store in the early mid-1700s. The building itself, it sits among the oldest in the city of Boston. It's so old that it predates building records. So many years ago, we had some architectural historians come in to assess how old the building was, and they were able to date it back to about 1705. As I mentioned, in 1826, it became the UnionOysterHouse, and we still have the original mahogany oyster bar that was here then. Now, in terms of history, 2003, we were recognized as a national landmark by the Interior Department, and at that time, we had Andrew Card, who was President Bush's chief of staff, come up and present an award. And we have that hanging over our lobster tank just as our customers enter. Andrew was a Massachusetts native. It was only fitting for him to come up and bring that up there. As I said, we've been open to the public and serving, and it's been, quite a trip for all of us.
Wow, it has indeed been a trip, and what a historical historical facts that you've given us about the restaurant, Jim, and certainly, I want to just continue to talk about just the history of the restaurant for a moment. We know that Boston has a unique history with, as I stated in the intro, with the Ivy League institutions, with Harvard, Yale, Boston College, and Boston University, Tufts, just to name a few. Boston is a rich university town, a college town, I should say, and again, the historical nature going back to the American Revolution and things of that nature. I wanted to ask you, how significant is the location of the restaurant just in terms of getting to not only to venues downtown, but also when people come in and go to the different universities, and then also, too, when they're on the historical trail of the city and wanting to check out the restaurant?
Well, right. As you mentioned, that we're on the Freedom Trail. The Freedom Trail is a great attraction for people, whether they're coming because they have a family member at one of the universities, or they may have somebody who's ill at one of our world-famous hospitals, and they come down. We're right behind Boston City Hall. We're about a block down from Quincy Market. Now, Quincy Market is a very, very old institution in Boston as well. In 1976, it was reopened by James Rouse, who was a developer from Baltimore, and it became a very, very popular attraction. It's kind of waned, or had its day in the sun, so to speak, but at one point, more people passed through Faneuil Hall than passed through the gates of Disney World, to give you an idea of how much a large an audience it attracted. We're right around the corner from the New England Aquarium and the beautiful Boston waterfront. So people flock here. And, especially since COVID, now that everyone has outside dining, a nice time of the year like this, people are down there, just enjoying themselves, and sliding in, hopefully, to our restaurant to have something to eat.
Wow, that sounds really awesome. And I know Boston, similar to not just cities on the East Coast, but in a lot of major metropolitan cities, public transportation is frequented quite often, and Boston is known for its tea. What's the easy access like to the restaurant if you're taking the tea?
We have several stops near us. We have Government Center. We have... let's see, Government Center is about it right now. We have Haymarket, but that's undergoing some construction at the moment. But we can be reached by several, lengths or several arms of the transportation system. And even if one were to come in via train, North Station or South Station, it's only a 10-minute walk from our restaurants. Boston is a very tea-driven city, a public transit-driven city. It's a very difficult city, even for natives to, traverse because of the way the roads are laid out. So you're better off to the tea to get here.
Wow, very convenient and very accessible. And speaking of being very accessible, not just the city of Boston, but really the state of Massachusetts is not landlocked. And you have a lot of bodies of water that surround the state of Massachusetts. In Boston, you have Cape Cod, and then also you have Narragansett Bay. The Atlantic Ocean is nearby as well. So I wanted to ask you, how does the restaurant take advantage of food resources in the state of Massachusetts?
Well, it's we're sitting on a bounty of food from the sea, as you mentioned. So all of our shellfish is, for the most part, is local. It's drawn from the waters of Massachusetts, Maine, sometimes the coast of Canada if we need to. But most of the oysters come from the Cape or from areas around Rhode Island. So there's a constant local supply that comes in on a daily basis from there. All of our oyster companies are local. They're either dealing with a group of oyster growers, or in some cases we have growers bring it directly to our door. So we take advantage of that. The same with the finfish, cod, haddock, things like that we sell. Those all sleep in the Atlantic the night before they're brought here, or they're in northern, not northern, but Canadian cold water. So we're very fortunate to have all of our products right at our front door.
Well, you guys definitely take advantage of the resources, as you said, with Boston being surrounded by water and, of course, the neighboring areas like Rhode Island. I want to stay just with a specific body of water. The Charles River runs through Boston and its surrounding areas. Do you guys utilize the Charles River as one of the sources to get your catch, or is it primarily Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and the other areas that you mentioned?
No, it'd be Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all these saltwater bodies. The Charles River, except for the estuary, there'd be no, it's predominantly fresh water. But, as I said, most of the shellfish is from the Cape, but it's all from the areas you mentioned. We do not utilize the Charles River for that.
All right, awesome. And certainly you guys take advantage of the resources. We're getting the cod and the seafood and things of that nature. And I want to talk about something really good, and that's the items served at the restaurant. So can you just tell our listening audience out there the items that are served at the Union Oyster House?
Sure. We harken back. We serve traditional New England seafare. And what do I mean by that? Well, some of our signature dishes are, if you were to come in, you would be sat and immediately you would have placed at your table some homemade, in our own bakery, cornbread with beautiful, beautiful cornbread. We get a lot of compliments from Southerners, which is high praise. And then you could scan our menu, and you have your choice of a number of things. We serve clam chowder. It's a creamy, white clam chowder. It's, I'd say, one of the best you will ever have. And we serve quite a bit of that. We probably rate aloud close to 10,000 gallons a year of clam chowder. Other items that are very popular, haddock, cod. Now, some of your viewers are probably familiar with the term scrod. Scrod is actually, that's on our menu, it's very popular. It's not actually a fish. It's a derivation of toothfish. Many years ago, one of the restaurants would serve what was called the catch of the day, and invariably it was serving either haddock or cod or haddock or cod. And the word scrod was derived from that. Some places use haddock, some places use cod. It's basically a beautiful piece of white Atlantic seafood that's put on a plate, and it's delicious. We serve cod as haddock, and it's a wonderful entree. People love it. Lobsters, we serve probably 12,000 lobsters a year. It's very, very popular. Over the past few years, I'm going back maybe 5 years, we've seen more and more customers defer to having a lobster roll because they think it's much, much easier to consume. A lobster can be pretty messy business if you don't know what you're doing. But the lobster rolls have become extremely popular here and in most restaurants in the greater Boston area. Fried seafood platters. People are on vacation and they're dreaming of fried clams or some type of fried seafood. We serve an awful lot of that. The great, reviews. People love it. And what other items would I say? We have some dishes that a little bit of seafood and Italian. We've got a beautiful shrimp scampi that's very popular. We have a scallop and shrimp dish served on rice with a wonderful sauce, and those are very, very popular dishes that people love.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm hungry just listening to you describe some of the items served at the restaurants. It's all delicious. I want to talk some about the items that you mentioned. I'd like to start off with the cornbread for a moment. You mentioned that a lot of people, particularly Southerners, rave about the cornbread. I know you can't give out the recipes because it's a secret and things of that nature. Is the cornbread house-made, or is there a special mix? If you can disclose the information on that.
Well, two things. We do give out the recipe. We have it on print at the restaurant, and we're not jealous about that. People ask for it, and we have it printed at the front desk. They can get it. Your viewers could go online and request it, and we could send it out. But it is made in our own bakery. We make pans and pans and pans of it, and it's just it's wonderful. It's kind of a funny thing when everybody in Boston's familiar with what they call the freshman 20. That means like a lot of students go away to college and they end up eating institutional food and putting on about 20 pounds the first year. And we have what I like to call the cornbread 15. All our employees get addicted to it. I mean, I rarely eat it anymore, but it's delicious. But it's just a very, very nice sweet cornbread, and it's got a touch of molasses in there that just, heightens, the pleasure of having it. But as I said, we don't hoard it. We also sell a mix of it in our gift shop.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Can you explain what's in the cornbread 15 or the cornbread 20?
It's a cornbread meal with the molasses. As I said, it's, whipped up together, excuse me, in our bakery, put into the ovens. It rises and it goes out that day. But, nothing mysterious about it. But
all right, awesome. And you mentioned about something that's uniquely, not just Boston, but uniquely New England with some of the seafood that you mentioned served at the restaurant, like cod, scallops, of course, the lobster. Yeah. Is there any, I should say, I know different regions have their thing in terms of seasonings that they put on their seafood or their fresh meats and produce and stuff. Is there any type of special New England seasonings that are used in the cod and the scallops and the lobster that make it unique?
Well, we have different items. If somebody wants a little spicy, we'll blacken a fish, put on some Cajun spices or something that add a little heat to it. But for the most part, it's just breadcrumb seasonings, with a little bit of seafood base to them, and we keep it simple, and if people want, often with the fried seafood, they like to dip it in a tartar sauce, which is basically a mayonnaise and relish sauce that enhances the flavor of the fried seafood. We don't mess with the food a lot. It's what you're getting is what nature provided. Okay,
awesome, fair enough. And you mentioned something that's also uniquely New England, and that's scrod. Can you explain to the listeners where scrod is particularly found? Is it found in the New England area, or as you mentioned, you get some of the catch in the cold waters of Canada, where scrod primarily harvested and caught at?
Scrod comes from the Georges Banks or, the southern Canadian waters. They're interchangeable. And it's basically a deep, cold water Atlantic whitefish. As I mentioned, it's haddock or cod. Years ago, it was the Parker House, which is an older hotel and restaurant in Boston that would serve it. And that's where its genesis was, where people would come in and ask for the haddock or cod. So it's basically, it's a nice Atlantic whitefish. And as I said, most places will use either the haddock or the cod. They're very similar. But it's a very popular dish. You can have it fried. Most people tend to have it broiled, as I mentioned earlier. Just some breadcrumbs, a little bit of butter on top. If they want to season it, they'll probably put a lemon or, a little bit of tartar sauce with it. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful fish. And you put your fork in it and it just falls apart. It's just so delicious. And that is something which is pretty much New England associated fish.
Wow, that sounds delicious right there. I mean, I'm getting hungry already, man. The dishes sound wonderful. And I just want to talk now about some of the most popular items. People go to different restaurants and they always have their go-to items. They want this or they want that or they want a specific dish. What are the most popular items that are served at the restaurant?
Well, as I mentioned, people come in, the cornbread is automatically put there. Clam chowder. Let's see, what do we serve? Probably between cups and bowls, I think, 125,000, 150,000 servings of that a year. It's something people like. A lot of times you'll have somebody even split it. The other one, which is very popular, the lobster rolls. We serve over 30,000 of those a year. Squad is very, very popular, and the fried seafood. Those are the go-to items people are looking for. And years ago, especially in the summer, people would come in and just have their heart set on getting a lobster. So this time of year, we really see those sales kick up, and you can just see the eagerness in the diners' eyes as that lobster is put in front of them. People work hard all year, and whether they're coming on vacation or they're just stopping in Boston, passing through, they want to sit down and have a good meal, and we want to take care of that desire indeed. And it's kind of nice to see it when you see a smile on somebody's face like that. A couple of items I mentioned that we serve that people seem to really love, a lot of the locals too, the shrimp scampi and that shrimp and scallop over the rice. It's just a wonderful, wonderful combination to have.
Wow, all of it sounds great. All of it sounds so delicious. And you mentioned about one of the most popular items served at the restaurant, and you mentioned about a specific sandwich. Now, in New Orleans and much of Louisiana, there's the po' boy, and Philadelphia has the cheesesteak, and New York has the hero or the sub sandwich, but Boston and the New England area specifically has the lobster roll. Can you explain to the listeners what the lobster roll is?
Lobster roll is just on a nice Brisson bun. We butter that up, and then we take lobster meat. We season it very lightly with, a little bit of lemon, just a touch of mayonnaise, a couple of spices here or there, and just put that in the bun, and it's served with, a side of French fries or something else if you prefer. And, just a wonderful way to enjoy lobster. You bite into that, you get the essence of the beautiful bread holding that wonderful lobster meat, and it's just a very flavor-packed experience. People love it, and it's an easier way of having the lobster than having to crack the shell and pull the meat out. So it's become very, very popular. We also have, you mentioned, like the po' boy sandwich down in Louisiana. We have, like, a fried oyster roll, which is similar to that, and the other one we have is the fried clam roll, both very, very popular. The clams, of course, are native to Rhode Island, and that's something people find in New England, up and down the coast of any of the states.
Wow, all of that sounds great, sounds awesome. You mentioned about the bun that's used for the lobster roll. Is the bun native to Boston, or is it native to the New England area, or is it outsourced?
No, it's something that's made. One of our vendors makes. I don't think it's particularly native to us, but it's just, some places you'll get stuff on just a hot dog roll. This is just a grade up of it, so you're enjoying not just what's in the sandwich, but what's wrapping the sandwich. We just happen to work with a tremendous bread company that supplies us.
Okay, good. And then now we talked about the most popular items at the restaurant. Now I want to talk now about not just the city of Boston, but just the New England area as a whole. Mm-hmm. For those that have never been, what are some of the things that you tell them about the area?
All right, about New England, like you mentioned earlier, Ed, you were talking about how we're surrounded by water. If you look at Boston geographically, and you put a pin in Boston, and you took a radius of 50 miles, and you just swung that out, if you go in all directions, if you go south, west, and north, and then, of course, you go east into the water, I would challenge you to find another city in the country that offers the geographical diversity that's available to us in Boston. Within that 50, let's call it 100 miles. 100 miles, you have the entire Cape Cod, including Wellfleet, which is the very tip of the arm of Cape Cod. You've got Long Island Sound. You've got the hills of the mountains of the Adirondacks in New York. You've got the Green Mountains in Vermont, the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and then you swing over to Maine, and you've got that wonderful seacoast loaded with all those wonderful treasures of the sea. So there's a lot to see and a lot to do, and there's a lot of different seasons. Believe it or not, the two busiest months of the year are July, and that's because people are on vacation with families traveling, and they all make Boston a stop on their trip to New England. And the other is October. People say, October, why October? Well, October, we put on a display with the foliage that's available in New England. And it's also the prime time for travel by the people who have the most money and the most time, i.e. the retired. So they come in motor coaches, bus loads. They go up and they view the beautiful foliage in northern New England, and they always pass through Boston. So those are some of the things that you can enjoy. Our winters aren't the nicest, but once you get through a winter, and you can really appreciate the beautiful spring that we've been enjoying. So that's what I would tell people about, New England. It's something to do here every season of the year, and we can pretty much accommodate any desire or need you want. You have the history. I mean, restaurants are, I've always said, every restaurant's the same, but every restaurant's different. Well, what do you mean by that, Jerry? Every restaurant, we do three things. We serve food, we serve beverage, and we serve the experience. What is the experience? The experience might be for some, you're up, say, like the top of one of it's called the Prudential Center, up at a white tablecloth looking down on the city of Boston, enjoying that expansive view and enjoying fine dining. McDonald's, you go in, you take your family in there. There might be, a playground out there to enjoy, but you basically having food, beverage, and experience. You come to the Union Oyster House. We have food, beverage, and history. Every room you go in, there's something different to see and do. One of my favorite things is when people come in, they're checking in, they look to the right. It's what we call our Wall of Fame. We have all kinds of little plaques about various celebrities, presidents, politicians, sports people that have visited us. And as you go through the restaurant, all of the walls have plaques that tell a story were published about the restaurant throughout the world. So it's very, very interesting. And for somebody who enjoys history, it's a nice stop to have while you're in Boston.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you said it's a lot of history and also a lot of fun things to do. I mean, it is true, knowing about not just the East Coast, but specifically the New England area, the winters can be rough. But as you say, once you survive them, you really have an appreciation for the four seasons. And as you mentioned about Boston being surrounded by the water, enjoying the water, then, of course, having close proximity to the mountains and stuff is truly sounds like a one-of-a-kind experience. And one of the one-of-a-kind experiences about Boston is the sports. And we know that the Bostonians and people in the New England area, they really love their sports, from the Red Sox to the Bruins, also the Patriots. Some guy named Tom Brady, I think he was pretty good as their quarterback, right? And
he was pretty well known.
People, yeah, was not too shabby. And the Boston Celtics, the history of the Celtics, Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, of course, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, and so on and so forth. And Bostonians have really loved their Celtics for such a long time. I want to ask you, what's the buzz like in the city of Boston, in the New England area, with the Celtics being in this year's NBA Finals?
We're just so excited. I mean, it's been a long wait, since 2008, and it was devastating last year. So we're getting all revved up for this. What the mayor has done, because there's so much buzz about them, is the area around the Boston Garden. The streets are shut down, and it becomes like a festival prior to the game with all of the restaurants and the places. So people go down there, hang out, have a good time, before the game, and then get to enjoy the game. The whole region's pulling for them. I'm old enough to remember the teams of the mid-'60s on, so I saw some of the legends. I was lucky to see Havlicek, to see Russell, to see Sam and Casey Jones and those guys, and they racked up like 8 championships in a row. And then to see Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and the Chief, that big three was just incredible in the 80s, so we were very, very lucky. And basketball is always, Red Sox, we're all diehard Red Sox fans, but for years and years and for generations and generations, the Celtics have always been like a home team favorite. People just love them. They're cloaked in glory, they're cloaked in history, and it's just such an exciting game to watch. So we're all very, very happy about that. We're hoping last year, prior to Game 7, Paul Pierce came in and had lunch at the restaurant. He's been here before, so he had some pictures taken with him. He's a great guy. He was in the second generation of the great, the big three, and just a very, very nice person. So.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Of course, we can't forget about the other big three, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. I mean, there's just so many great Celtic memories, man. Those championship banners at the Garden, man, it's just it's a sight to see. I want to ask you, you mentioned about going as far back as the days with Russell and Havlicek and so on and so forth. What were games like at the old Boston Garden as opposed to going to games at the TD Garden?
The old Boston Garden was, they had virtually nothing for air conditioning. And I don't know if you remember, when they were playing the Lakers, I think it was 84, 86, I can't remember. There was a picture on the front page of the Boston Globe after the Celtics beat them. And it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sitting on the sidelines with a mask over his face for oxygen because he just could not take the heat in the Garden. It was just incredible. The new Garden, of course, is, absolutely beautiful compared to the old one, but the old one just had so much history. It was a wonderful place to go. I saw, concerts there. I saw, you go to a doubleheader, you'd see the Celtics, and then that night they'd chase the parquet floor over the ice, and you get to see the Bruins play. So it was quite a place. But, in terms of amenities and the building, I saw it come down, and it was good riddance at that point. It had served its purpose.
Wow, man, I tell you one thing, nothing like the old Garden. I tell you, memories are being made at TD Garden, but, man, so many memories were made at the old Boston Garden. And before I let you go, sir, I mentioned about some of Boston being a sports town, Boston Marathon. That's been a tradition for decades. How does the restaurant get a lot of business during the marathon time?
Oh, absolutely. Again, I mentioned the two busiest months, but the two busiest long weekends, because the marathon weekend is a long weekend in Boston. We have what's called, I forget the holiday, but the marathon is run on that, and it attracts. What happens is on Thursday you start getting people coming into Boston. I like to see you have the runners, and I could say the groupies come in. So it's not just runners; they're bringing family, they're bringing friends. The economic impact is incredible within the city. Then they go through, and they don't leave till about Tuesday. As far as like the runners coming into the restaurant, we'll see them prior to that. We won't see them the day before because they go out and they carbo load. But the day after, that Monday, right after the marathon, from 4 o'clock on, you can tell who the runners are. They're walking cramped over in agony, and they just want to get some protein in their body. So it's it's a joy to see it, and it really is it's a wonderful, wonderful weekend in the city. Generally, the weather is conducive to running, but we have had occasions where it's either poured or it's been in the 90s. So, but it's just such an important part of the city and its traditions.
Indeed, a festive time during the Boston Marathon, and Boston loving their sports, and certainly the Boston Celtics just riding a high right now as they prepare for this year's NBA Finals. This was a lot of fun, Jim. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. Tell everybody where they can find Union Oyster House on the internet, any social media platforms. Let the listeners know that as well.
Sure. Our website is UnionOysterHouse.com. And you can find us on Facebook or X or I believe any of the other Instagram as well. Yeah, so we're available there.
You heard it from him. He is JimMallin. He is the general manager of the UnionOysterHouse in the city of Boston, and certainly not only loving the Celtics, but also talking about the wonderful dishes at the legendary restaurant UnionOysterHouse. Jim, thank you so much once again, and if ever you would like to come back on, just feel free to let us know.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for having me.
Neymar to be the primary matchup on Brunson. Brunson, little turnaround is good. Brunson already with 8 and maybe 10. Brunson dominating early. Both had some open looks. Another one missed. Brunson drives it. Brunson got it. Jalen Brunson. Brunson goes right by Halliburton. Pull that straight up. Brunson. Brunson. Oh, silky smooth. Brunson stops on a dime. And now Nembhard on Brunson. Three-pointer flies. And Brunson rips the cord. Brunson over Nembhard. Cash it in. And guarding Brunson here. Brunson shifty. Looking for contact. Brunson got it. Sitting on 40. Kicks it. DiVincenzo. Three-pointer. Down it goes.
All right, that audio was courtesy of the NBA on TNT, TNT Sports, and Warner Brothers Discovery. The voice that you heard right there, that was Brian Anderson on the call, and that was New York Knicks Dynamo point guard Jalen Brunson. He scored 43 points. That was in Game 1 of the second-round series against the Indiana Pacers in this year's 2024 NBA playoffs. That was from May the 6th of 2024. And unfortunately, the Knicks came up short in the 7-game series. They succumbed to injuries, but man, the Magic, what a season it was. And we saw a superstar emerge in Jalen Brunson. Also, we had the pleasure of watching the Nova 3, Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and a host of other players on that team. And the magic of basketball was in full swing once again in the NYC, the Big Apple, New York City. We haven't had him on in the program in quite some time, but it's great to have him back. He is the CEO of the OfftheBall Network. He's also host of the OfftheBall and Get a Bucket podcast, and he's a contributor for Knicks Fan TV. Let's welcome him back to the program, ChrisLebron. Hey, Chris, welcome back, my man.
Hey, man, what's going on, man? No, it's been a minute, man, but I'm excited to be on and talk to you, bro.
Absolutely, sir. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. Before we get deep into the Knicks playoff run this year against the Sixers and the Pacers, I know you got a lot of words, so the floor is yours, sir. What words do you have to describe the 2023-2024 New York Knicks season?
It was a lot of fun. You know, I know that it didn't end the way we wanted to, and obviously there's a lot of disappointment with that. But obviously, I mean, we lost. Like, everybody got hurt. So it was, there's frustration with that, man, that's what took us out. It's just injuries and all that. But I'm confident that if we were healthy, we would have won the series versus Indiana in 5 or 6. We'd be playing Boston right now, but obviously that's not the case. But, you know, it was just a lot of fun. You know, it was a season that, you know, I came into the season thinking they could be a 45 to 47 win ball club, and was confident with that. You know, and you know maybe we could win a playoff series or not. You know, but I didn't know if Brunson. I was still seeing if, you know, can Brunson, you know, play the way he did last year or better. I wasn't sure. You know, we had to see. And he definitely played a lot better than last year. Last year was borderline All-NBA, and this year he was All-NBA. And I had him first team. I know he finished second team. So, but he was tremendous. You know, the Dante signing, you know, proved to be very impactful. You know, he was coming in to be a backup, and he wound up starting and having the most threes in Knicks history. Josh Hart, obviously, you know. So it was a fun season, man. That's the one thing I could take out of it. And you know, it gives us a lot of, you know, a good feelings heading into next season because we have draft capital. We can move some guys around if needed to be and not really kill our depth. So the big thing is it was a lot of fun, you know, because it was, you know, we had a great ride and all that, seeing Brunson's evolution and all that. But obviously, unfortunately, injuries just the NBA gods once again strike down on New York City and say not this year. So we got to wait till next year and all that. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, bro.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, it's one thing when Los Angeles is winning and it's fun, but when New York is winning, it's a lot of fun, and the atmosphere is just kicked up a notch, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. I want to talk about the Knicks' thrilling series against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Knicks, I mean, they clicked on all cylinders. Now, Mitchell Robinson got hurt in the early part of the series, but again, we talked about him earlier. Jalen Brunson, right, emerging as a superstar. Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, they handled their business. OG Anunoby was exciting as well. Isaiah Hartenstein, I mean, he came out of nowhere too with the defense and the rebounding. Give me your thoughts on the Knicks' performance against the 76ers.
It was gritty, you know, especially with the bigs, man, because, you know, even though Joel was nowhere near 100%, he was probably, 65, 70% at max, he's still a load, and he gave the bigs a very tough time and all that, you know. So, you know, I give credit to Hardenstein and, you know, Mitch for being able to do their best against, you know, he was going to win MVP if he doesn't get hurt, Joel. He was on pace to win back-to-back MVP. So I give them tremendous credit in that series for just holding himself. It wasn't easy. They got beat up and all that, but they did their thing and all that. But just the little things with the Knicks they did against Philly, just boxing out Josh Hart's ability to, you know, to just always find the ball and all that, hit big shots and all that. So same thing with Dante, especially in game 2 when, you know, we were down, you know, 6-7 points in the last 35 seconds and, you know, to hit big time shots and all that. But, you know, it's just the little things that we did in that series is why we won and all that. And, you know, the big just, you know, they got beat up, but they held their own. They did their best and all that. So, you know, that series was a lot of fun, though. I think that was probably the most entertaining first-round series in the playoffs and all that. And, you know, that's not a typical 7 seed either. You know, Philly was not a 7 seed. You know, they were more of a top 4 seed, and you know, we had our they gave us everything they got. You know, but you know, the little things are why the Knicks came out of that series, and you know, the bigs just taking a beating, but just staying in there and all that. So that was a big reason why they took care of business against Philly.
Man, you talk about so many dynamite players in that series. When we talk about Brunson and Hart, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Hardenstein, and also, I mean, Joel Embiid. Like you said, Embiid was only at 65%, but hey, had he not been hurt, he would have repeated as MVP. And Tyrese Maxey, he emerged as a superstar too. And let's just say Tobias Harris was nowhere to be found in that series against the Knicks.
They still got a major on him.
You're right about that. They do have an Amber Alert on him. I mean, or they found his face on the milk carton, so to speak. Have you seen Tobias Harris? I mean, come on now. But, you know, while we're still talking about New York and Philly, we know these two cities are less than 2 hours away from one another. We know that the rivalry has been intense, especially in sports. What is it about New York and Philadelphia that has made this such a fierce rivalry, would just make the competitiveness just continue for decades?
Man, it's just, like you said, it's close. We're close by, right? It's, depending where you're at, it could be hour and change ride to Philadelphia and all that. And I think it's more of a Philly thing and all that, like, kind of like they like to say that, you know, we're tough on our sports teams and all that. Our fans show out. Their fans didn't really show out the way they like to say they do. You know, just look at the way, you know, Knicks fans showed up at Philly. You know, we definitely showed our presence in that series, especially on the road, you know, all that. But it's just one of those things where, you know, we're so close to each other, and, you know, in every sport, like if you look at football, the Giants and the Eagles are in the same division. You look in baseball, like the Mets and the Phillies are in the same division. You look at basketball, we're in the same division with Philly. So it's just every sport, you know, we're rivals in, and it's, you know, we've played big time playoff series, you know, in every sport. You know, Eagles, Giants, they play plenty of playoff games against each other. So it's just, you know, I think maybe a little jealousy with Philly because they, you know, they're a city of brotherly love and all that, and they're known for, you know, the Liberty Bell and Rocky and all that. They got statues of fictional characters. Where in New York we got the bright lights and all that. So there's probably some jealousy with Philly and all that. But you know, they got their cheesesteaks, we got our pizza. That's a rivalry. What's better, you know? But it's definitely been intense for the last whatever amount of years. The rivalry between the cities, you know, because sports has been such a big, either with hip hop, you name it. You know, everything is a rivalry with us, with us in Philly. So, you know, especially when you get down to sports, it's intense. Especially when we're talking about playoff, you know, type of, you know, playoff atmospheres and no matter the sport. So it's an intense rivalry. You know, like I said, we're so close to each other, you know, that it even makes it more, you know, intense. So, man, it's just one of those things that it's fun. It's like us with New York, you know, but yeah, it's really, I've been to Philly Knicks games. It's something different, man. But yeah, it's just, we're so close to each other and all that, and you know, maybe some jealousy with you know, with how, you know, New York gets, you know, everybody so hypes up New York as just a whole, you know, with the lights and you know, all this Midtown Manhattan and all this. So, you know, it's a little bit of that, but it's a fun rivalry, man. But this, you know, going back and forth with those fans, you know, it can get a little crazy, but it's fun though.
Indeed, it is fun, man. It's been on like that for decades, and certainly both New York and Philly, great with the sports, and of course, two culturally unique and iconic cities. And I want to talk now just about the Knicks' run against the Pacers. Again, it went 7 games. It went the distance. You mentioned the key word, Chris, injuries, and the injuries got the best of the Knicks. Give me your thoughts on the Knicks series against the Pacers.
Honestly, it's just the injuries, man. Like, I'm 100% confident that if we just have OG, where we win that series. But, you know, him going down with the hammy is just was like, oh, man. And then, like, Game 7 happens, we're hyped. Brunson's missing in action, and then we find out he breaks his hand. So it's like, oh, we could not catch a break. You know, we already came into the series without, you know, numerous guys. Bogdanovich gets hurt. You know, obviously Randall was out during the season with the shoulder surgery and all that. You know, losing Mitchell Robinson, and then you lose OG, and then you know, Hart is battling some ribs and some rib pain and all that. So you're like, man, like, I don't know if these guys can go so much longer. And then, you know, Brunson getting hurt was like the cherry on top. I was like, all right, we're not going to win this. We're not going to be able to overcome all these injuries and all that. So it's that's the thing. It's his injury, because I'm 100% confident, man, that if we just got one or two of those, one and a half of those guys good, you know, we take care of business. Or even if Brunson's healthy and doesn't hurt his hand, we win Game 7 and all that. But injuries, man, like you said, it's just injuries. I can't say nothing more, man. I think we win the series if we're just a tad healthy, but wasn't the case. And, you know, that unfortunately that's sports and that's what happens. But, yeah, injuries, man. There's nothing more to it, man. It's just the injuries are the reason why we did not advance.
You know, I want to stay just with this Knicks-Pacers rivalry. We last talked about New York and Philly, and they've just been going at each other, and they're having this intense rivalry for decades. The Knicks and the Pacers, it's been intense since the 90s. Reggie Miller, Spike Lee, Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, and so on and so forth. Well, I guess you could say the rivalry became renewed with this year's series. What's it like with a Pacers-Knicks rivalry, especially at Madison Square Garden?
I mean, you know, especially, you know, me growing up in the 90s and all that, and, you know, the high point of New York Knicks basketball. When you think about the New York Knicks, and just that era, you always think Reggie, right? You see the choke when he does, Spike Lee, he does the choke thing and all that, and just the constant playoff battles. I mean, it was just, that was the antithesis of the 90s and the Knicks and all that, and it's just that those two teams were battling to see who was going to, get to play Jordan and the Bulls and all that, or have a shot to get to the final. So that rivalry, I mean, it's up there. Like, I grew up, I couldn't stand Indiana, just like I couldn't stand the Miami Heat. I couldn't stand, a lot of these teams, but it's another intense rivalry we had. Especially when you see a team constantly in the playoffs, and it's to go to the Eastern Conference Final, or it's to go to the NBA Finals, it intensifies. And you know how in the 90s it was, the rivalries were at this apex. So I love it. I love that we're getting the rivalries back, getting teams not liking each other and all that. Knicks Pacers don't like each other. Knicks Philly don't like. I like that. I think we need that back in basketball and all that. So, but yeah, that rivalry in particular is great. I just love that. Not only that my team is relevant, but those rivalries seem to be getting back. Miami's another rivalry. We played them last year, and unfortunately we lost in 6. But I love those rivalries. Those are what made me a massive, obviously a Knicks fan just being in New York, but just a massive basketball fan, because those rivalries were intense and meant something and all that. Like you said, it was usually one of those teams were advancing to play Jordan or going to try to get to the finals and all that. So Knicks Pacers is going to be something for the next few years we're going to see, especially Brunson and Halliburton, two of the best point guards in the NBA going at it. So unfortunately they got the best of us the last 2 times we played them. They got us this year. They got us in 2013. With Melo and all that when PG was there. But I'm sure we'll see them again, and hopefully next year we'll get to see them again, and we can get some revenge on them.
You're absolutely right about that, man. It's great to see the rivalries come back, and certainly with Knicks and the 76ers, and then you mentioned Knicks and the Heat, and definitely Knicks Pacers, and hey, Brunson, Halliburton, also Siakam, and with Hart and DiVincenzo and the crew definitely has the makings of definitely a rivalry renewed. And I want to talk just about some Knicks players for a moment. Josh Hart, what a season that Josh had this year. Every team that Josh has played on, he's always been a hard worker and somebody that gives it his all during his time with the Lakers, with the Pelicans, time in Portland, and now arriving in New York. He's only been in New York for a short amount of time, but he's developed like a cult following in the Big Apple. What's the buzz like towards Josh Hart, especially this past season?
Man, that man he can get a free dinner anywhere he wants, man. He's I know when people think about New York, they always think about big time player, these big, talented players and superstar level players, but it's always those gritty type players that always are, the guys that we tend to gravitate around and all that. And, he's one of those guys. He's just beloved, just simply because he's that type of player that, he's not someone that has a high vert. He's not a big player. He's an undersized type of 4. He's not a great shooter. He's not a great dip, but somehow he ends up with, hitting some big time 3-pointers or, grabbing 15 rebounds in a game, and just, being a warhorse, playing 48 minutes, those type of players don't exist. Like, to have one of those guys, it truly is, just a joy to watch, and knowing that he's going to give you everything he had, and he just said it. He's like, I gave everything I had and all that, and every time he's on the court, he's going to give you 110%, and all that. So he's the heart and soul of this team. He brings the energy, and then they feed off that, and obviously having the chemistry with the Nova boys and all that. But man, he's a joy. I'm so happy he's here. When they traded for him, people were like, they wasn't sure. I was on board because I always thought of him as a winning player, even though he didn't make the playoffs. But I always thought of him as that glue guy that always is going to fit no matter what. And it's definitely, he's fit like a glove here. And I don't see a lot of people complaining about, trading Cam Reddish for him anymore and all that. It's definitely all love for Josh Hart. And, he's just, and he's the heart and soul, no pun intended, but he's the heart and soul of the squad.
You're absolutely right, and certainly Josh also, I would say, out of the Nova 3, definitely the most comical one out of the two. Never a dull moment with him, and certainly cracking jokes, and certainly he's very the life of the party, so to speak. And Josh definitely developed a cult following in New York and amongst Knicks fans, and looking forward to what happens with him going forward. And another person of the Nova 3, Dante DiVincenzo. He won an NBA championship several seasons ago with the Milwaukee Bucks. Then after that got traded to Sacramento, 1 year in Golden State, and then he really had his breakout year this year with the Knicks. And you talk about a walking three-pointer, somebody that gives it his all, somebody that has a lot of hustle. That'd be Dante DiVincenzo. Give me a take on Dante's season and what he is among Knicks fans.
Yeah, he grew on. I think a lot of people, when we signed him, I think it was more of a mixed reaction. I think people were kind of like, he's a solid player, but we don't, coming off the bench and all that, like, they would really need him and all that. But, he showed from the jump that, all right, he understands his role, because at first coming off the bench, because we still had Quentin Grimes. And Quentin Grimes was someone that, we were trying to groom to be our future, two guard, him and Brunson and all that. But, you can't underestimate chemistry and all that, especially when, he's played with Jalen Brunson and Hart, and he just felt like a glove here. And he kind of got the, he kind of got the city on his back after, some big time games early, and he kind of took their starting spot. He essentially got, it made Quentin Grimes expendable, and they wanted to trade him, in the Bogdanovich trade and all that, and kind of made it a guy that we thought that was going to be our two guard of the future is now getting shipped, and now Dante, finished the season with tremendous season, all-time single season Knicks 3-point. He got the record from Fournier and all that, so it was just. He just had a massive season, played great, big reason why we won the Sixers series, being able to guard, Maxey and all that is not easy, and he was able to be solid, hit big time shots, and, be a big part of this, and, he grew on Knicks fans and all that, especially me, because I was kind of on the fence and all that with the acquisition, but proved that he's definitely a great piece, and someone that I'm looking forward to see what he does next season. Because he's definitely a big part of why we were able to have the success we had this season.
Absolutely, and as you said, it was a breakout year for Dante, man, and hopefully his star will continue to shine bright, and he could contribute big things for the New York Knicks. And speaking of contributing to the New York Knicks, man, who would have thought Jalen Brunson, you said Brunson's first year with the Knicks last year was amazing. Could he top it? Well, he topped that and then some. This year he made his first All-Star team. Yeah, you're right about that. He made his first All-Star team. Was voted this year All-NBA second team. And it was so interesting because he started his career with the Dallas Mavericks. Last 2 years really picked up his numbers, but it made it perfectly clear that Luka Doncic got the Supermax, and Dallas really had their eyes set on Kyrie Irving. Well, Brunson last year was good. This year, greater. I mean, give me your thoughts on Jalen Brunson and emerging into a bona fide superstar this year.
It just shows them that when you just base stuff on measurables, that's not the only way you need to view a player. Sometimes you got to really dig deep and really find what you can find in a player. And with Brunson, he proved a lot of people wrong throughout the years, and showing why he's good. Even when he was in Dallas with Luka, like, he showed flashes. When Luka was on the court, he showed that he could be a high-level guard. And, the Knicks took a chance on him, and he was able to obviously do what he did last year, be almost an all-star, almost an all-NBA player, and this year accomplished both of those things. I think he should have been first-team all-NBA, but, I'll take second team and all that, because that still shows what he was able to do this year. But, man, it's been fun seeing his growth as a player, and, I think the comfortability with having Josh Hart and Dante there, it has really just made him even more comfortable on the court as a player, because he's obviously played with those guys, in college. So it's been fun to see him grow and take the city, take the city by storm and really be the guy, be the guy in New York City. It's not easy to do, and he's able to handle that really well and grab it by the horn. So it's just been fun, man. He's a tremendous player, 3-level scorer for a guy who's undersized, 6'1", not an above-rim player. To be a 3-level scorer is absolutely, that's not easy to do, man. And he's able to do it. It was so much fun watching him. And he was just lights out. And when I saw he fractured his hand, it made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't even finish watching, because I was like, oh, it's over, because he is really, he's the engine starter. So, but I'm looking forward to the next next year and seeing if he can take it up another level. I think there's another level to be taken. So, I'm excited for next season, man. I mean, there's no, we don't got picks, or no, we got all the picks. We can make a move if possible and all that, but it starts with him, and that's why we feel comfortable going forward, because we have Jalen Brunson in New York. So I'm happy to have 11 on my team, man.
Absolutely. He definitely dazzled this year. And I want to stay just with Jalen for a moment. So 2 years ago, that free agency period was kind of all over the place, because Kyrie Irving was out there. Also, Donovan Mitchell was out there as well. Kyrie, growing up in the area, being from northern New Jersey, there was the possibility of him maybe being a Knick, playing across the East River in Brooklyn. And then Donovan Mitchell is a New Yorker. There was the possibility of him playing in New York. There was rumors of Kevin Durant, with his future, but unfortunately, Phoenix making the deal in the trade, and the Knicks land Jalen Brunson, of course, with his father working for the organization. Did you expect Jalen to have this immediate success, despite all the names that was kind of thrown around in that free agency period with Kyrie and Donovan and Kevin Durant?
Expected success, because, like I mentioned before, when he was in Dallas, when Luka was not on the court, he definitely showed, and he definitely helped Dallas out, especially that year they went to the conference finals and all that. But did I expect this? I'll be lying. I'd be lying to you, man, if I expected this. But I did expect him to be a borderline level all-star player and all that, because he's the opportunity. Obviously, he doesn't have to share the ball with Luka. But I didn't expect this, man. I'd be lying to say if I expected this. With the Knicks point guard situation, in years past, I just wanted someone solid. And when we got him, I was like, okay, we got a solid point guard. Now we have to build the rest of the foundation and all that. And then he just took off. And I'm like, whoa, I did not expect this. I did not expect that at all. And to get that was absolutely tremendous. And then going into the season, you're like, all right, can he do it again? And then he did it again and did it better. So it's like, you knew there was something there in Dallas, and you got to give him credit too for betting on himself, because he could have took the money, and had a nice payday, especially being a second-round pick. But he bet on himself, and he definitely he made the right move and all that. And he's gonna, I know he's contract eligible this season, and then next season he can really get paid. So. Everything's going to work out for him. But, man, I didn't expect it to be this good. Good, yeah. I definitely expect him to be borderline level all-star, but not this good, man. I'd be lying if I say I thought that, man. And most people will tell you the same. Like, they didn't expect this. They just wanted someone to be solid because we have not had a good point guard play in a while. But man, we've gotten a great investment because his contract now, you look at it and it's peanuts compared to, you know, some of these other guys and all that who are not giving you anything close to the production he's giving you. So, you know, didn't expect it to be this good, but I'm happy we have.
Absolutely. It caught me by surprise too, Chris. I was expecting good things, but not like this, man. And definitely he turned it up in more ways than one. And it's just going to be exciting to see what happens next year. And, you know, Madison Square Garden, right? They say it's the Mecca of basketball. It's nestled right there in Midtown Manhattan. And MSG, we know they've held some great events, great concerts, and, of course, they're the home of New York Knicks basketball, and the energy was just alive this year, particularly for the New York Knicks and just the Garden. They showed up in more ways than one. I asked you this question last time I had you on, Chris, but I'll ask you this question again. What is the atmosphere like watching New York Knicks basketball at Madison Square Garden?
I know I'm going to sound like a homer, but it's unlike anything you can experience as a sports fan. I've yet to get to a playoff game because we haven't had a lot of time. A lot of shots in the playoffs because we've just had a lot of bad years. But even regular season games. I went to a Suns-Knicks game last year, and the atmosphere was it's second to none, man. When the Garden's rocking and when shots are being made and the crowd is just going nuts. It is the greatest home court advantage you have in basketball. And, I tell everyone who asks me, all my, podcast friends who are not from New York or they're from Atlanta, they're from Boston, they're from California, Tech, wherever. I'm like, if you come to New York, you got to go to the Garden and just feel it. And then you'll understand. And most people do. They're like, I get it. And they understand, like, okay, this makes sense. I get why it gets all the, all the love it gets. So it's a special place, man. It's a special place, and it's, when we're moving and we're rocking and rolling, it's unlike anything in the world, especially in basketball. So, right now it's at its apex, like I said, and hopefully, we continue to make moves so we can continue to get that place rocking, and hopefully one day, 1 year, we get to experience that, in the finals. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just simply special, man. It's unlike any other building in basketball.
The tagline is the world's most famous arena, and rightfully so, with a lot of great events, and certainly when the Knicks play and when the Knicks are winning, I mean, that, like you said, that place is rocking, and it's just an energy unlike any other. And speaking of being an energy unlike any other, it's New York City, right? And the magic of basketball is back in New York City, not just at the Garden, but just New York City as a whole. We saw all of the celebrities come out, like Ben Stiller, Tracy Morgan, John McEnroe. Spike Lee's going to be there. I mean, what's not to love about Spike, right? And then you've got a lot of the Knicks players showed up. Walt Frazier, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Charles Oakley showed up. I just got to ask you, Chris, what's it like to have the magic of basketball being back in the Big Apple with this resurgence of the Knicks and seeing all those Knicks players and celebrities coming out in full force?
It's just dope. It's the hottest ticket. You see all these other teams, and they got solid celebs and all that. But when the Knicks are doing their thing, you see the top of the top, the creme of the creme at the Garden and all that. And sometimes, for some fans, they don't like that because it kind of outprices them out for playoff games, but that's for a whole another story and all that. But you see people want to be a part of that, man. But you can't get mad when you see these high ticket prices, man. It is a hot ticket, and even celebs or whatever they're doing, they're stopping because they want to be sitting courtside at the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, to see this team try to make a run. So it's definitely it's buzzing right now. And like I said, it's only going to get even more, the buzzing is going to keep getting louder because this team actually has the infrastructure to do some special things, not just for a year, but for multiple years. And this is a year, this is another back-to-back years. We get to the second round. Obviously, we didn't end the way we wanted to these last 2 years, but we know that a move here or there, we can get to where we want to go and to at least get to the conference finals, which we know we were right there because if all our guys don't get hurt, we're there. I 100% believe that. So we know we're just a few little tweaks away from not just getting to the conference finals, but maybe being, represent the East in the finals. So, that's why this city's buzzing. The celebs are out and all that. They want to be a part of it. They want to see this happen, and hopefully, we get to see that happen real soon.
You know what? It's one thing when you have your small market teams winning, and it's another thing when you have Los Angeles winning. But when New York is winning, it's just the perfect balance. I call it the perfect storm, so to speak, because you got New York and L.A. and your other big markets, and when you put some of the small markets in there, man, it just makes for great parity, and it just makes for great NBA basketball. There's nothing like it. It's great to see NYC come alive with basketball returning. And staying with the Knicks for a moment, with the Knicks having this resurgence the last couple of years, and we know New York City is known for the parks and rec centers and playing basketball like at the Rucker and so on and so forth. I got to ask you, with the Knicks having this resurgence, are kids in the NYC heading to playgrounds again to learn the art of playing basketball?
Yeah, I definitely think you'll have more people a little bit more excited because the Knicks are relevant again and all that, so that definitely gets more kids excitement. But I always feel like with New York City, there's some, especially like right now, it's nice out. You're always going to see people out, regardless if the Knicks or whoever is good and all that. It's always going to be active and all that. But definitely the Knicks being good definitely, gives people an extra pep in their step and all that, feeling good, feeling confident and all that, but, feel good that they're a Knicks fan, wear that Knicks stuff when on the court, all that, so, and give that a little bit extra oomph on the court that you need and all that. But, yeah, I think it's going to be, the New York City is always alive, especially this time, especially on the courts and all that, but, yeah, I think the Knicks help a little bit with that. Give a little bit of energy because the fans are feeling good about themselves. But, it's always alive right now. And now that's really going to get nice out, see if you can be more alive.
I heard the Rucker, West Fourth, and the Dykeman are always popping around this time. Is that correct, sir?
Oh, yeah. This tournament's going on, man. Hopefully I can get to – I haven't got to been there in some years. Hopefully this summer I'll definitely get to go out there and see some of the good basketball that's out there in Dykeman and the cages, under the bridge. There's a lot of great tournaments, going on in the city everywhere. Anywhere you see a park, there's probably going to be a tournament going on and all that. So, that's the one thing great about New York is basketball is alive everywhere, every borough. So you just pick a borough and just spend the night, take in the scenery and just enjoy some good hoop because you see some very talented individuals, that you're like, wow, this guy should be playing somewhere. This gal should be playing somewhere. So, it's the one thing, it is high-level hoop, no matter where you are in the city, man. But, man, it's going to be live. I can't wait, man. I'm excited to get to there and see some games, to interview some people, for the podcast and all that. I'm excited about the summer.
One thing about New York City, it's always on the move, it's always growing, and, hey, it's always on the move when it comes to their basketball, and they produced a lot of great stars, and they continue to do it in the area. And you heard it from him. He is ChrisLebron. He's the CEO of the OfftheBall Network and host of the Off the Ball and Get a Bucket podcast, and he's a contributor for Knicks Fan TV. Chris, thank you so much for being on the program. Tell everybody where they can find you, Chris, on social media, as well as Off the Ball, Get a Bucket, Knicks Fans TV, any websites. Let the listeners know that as well.
Yeah, so you can find me Off the Ball Pod. That's our most active on X. Instagram too, Off the Ball Pod. Facebook page. You can follow my YouTube channel at OfftheBall Network. We do a lot of good stuff. I have my shows go on there, but we do football stuff, gambling, you name it, on that. So make sure that you give us a like, and we're almost at 500 subs. So give us a sub on YouTube and all that. Make sure to check out our website, OfftheBallNetwork.com. You can check us out there. We also have a merch store. You can check us out, Off the Ball Network, at Spreadshirt.com. You can check us out there. We got some nice, cool merch, on there. So, and yeah, like I said, man, follow me Off the Ball Pod. I always talk everything basketball, no matter what it is. Let's talk hoop over there. Just reach me out. Just talk to me. Hit me up on DM if you want to talk hoop, whatever, man. I love talking basketball. So, hit me up there, and then we'll have. I do spaces too. So, but yeah, I love the hoop, man. So just hit me up, and we'll talk ball.
No doubt. You heard it from him. He is ChrisLebron. He's the CEO of the Off the Ball Network, also host of the Off the Ball and Get a Bucket podcast, and a contributor for Knicks Fan TV, enjoying the New York Knicks and all that it has to offer in the NYC, New York City. Chris, as always, this was a lot of fun. Thanks again, my man. If ever you want to come back on, feel free to let us know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You say the word. I'm on, my man.
Lamar to be the primary matchup on Brunson. Brunson, little turnaround is good. Brunson already with 8 and maybe 10. Brunson dominating early. Both had some open looks. Another one missed. Brunson drives it. Brunson got it. Jalen Brunson. Brunson goes right by Halliburton. Pull that straight up. Brunson. Oh, silky smooth. Brunson stops on a dime. And now Nembhard on Brunson. Three-pointer flies, and Brunson rips the cord. For Brunson over Nembhard. Cash it in. And guarding Brunson here. Brunson shifty, looking for contact. Brunson got it. Sitting on 40. Kicks it. DiVincenzo, three-pointer. Down it goes.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of At the Rim. Once again, a big special thank you to JimMallin, General Manager of the UnionOysterHouse in Boston, and ChrisLebron, CEO of the Off the Ball Network. Until next time, everybody, I'm Ed Robinson saying so long, and you take care. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.